We're calling all writers, storytellers, and creators of tales of the paranormal and supernatural. Do you have a spine-tingling story that's too chilling to keep to yourself? If the answer is yes, then wherever you are in the world, the Haunted UK Fiction Podcast wants to hear from you. Whether you're a published author, an aspiring writer, or someone with a natural gift for storytelling, this is your chance to share your work with a global audience of listeners who crave the eerie, the unexplained, the otherworldly. We're looking for original fictional short stories or novellas with strong paranormal or supernatural themes. Your stories can be suspenseful, mysterious, atmospheric, terrifying, thought-provoking, even darkly magical. If your story is selected, we'll professionally narrate, record, mix, and master it into an audiobook-style format, then feature it on the show. You'll get a copy of the finished production to use however you like, and you'll retain full ownership of your work. There are no fees, no contracts, and no hidden jargon. Your story deserves to be heard. Whether it's a tale that's been haunting your notebook for years, or maybe something that you're finally ready to unleash, this is your chance to bring it to life. To submit your story for consideration, email us at hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. And don't forget to follow the show on Instagram at hauntedukfiction. Now sit back and enjoy the episode. Welcome, dear listeners, to a special episode of Haunted UK Fiction, where we will read an excerpt from a brand new novel and have a chat with its author, the wonderful Theresa Cheung. Theresa, a prolific author who is widely recognised for her expertise in all things relating to dreams, was featured on the Haunted UK podcast last year. Theresa's in-depth knowledge and research in the field of dreams and the paranormal has led her to authoring several international best-selling books, all of which were non-fiction. Until now. Theresa has approached us with her debut fictional novel, Nightborn, which ties into her decades-long study of dreams, nightmares, sleep paralysis, incubus and succubus encounters, liminal dream states where ghostly figures appear, and even dream hacking. What if the line between your waking life and your darkest dreams disappeared forever? Nightborn centres on a character by the name of Alice Sinclair, a driven psychology professor who is about to find out. When thousands of people begin experiencing terrifying vivid nightmares, all centred around her, Alice's quiet academic life is shattered. Haunted by the question of why she's become the subject of these shared dreams, Alice embarks on a desperate search for answers, uncovering a chilling secret. Someone, or something, hungry for global power has discovered a way to manipulate consciousness itself. The world is fast becoming a playground for those in control of the dreaming mind. In a heart-stopping race against time, Alice must navigate a treacherous web of deception where nothing and no one can be trusted, not even herself. Now settle in as we read the suspenseful prologue and first chapter of Nightborn. Then stay tuned afterwards for our chat with Theresa Cheung. Prologue. Florida, USA. Sometime soon. Alice saw the wave. It was a beast. It rose slowly at first, the way a predator prepares to strike. Silent, inevitable. It quickly gained speed, swelling into a towering monster, a force of nature as if the ocean itself had decided to swallow her whole. The wave surged, easily 30 feet high, dark and roaring with the ferocity she could feel in her bones. It moved toward her with the relentlessness of fate. She turned, panic seizing her as she raced up the beach, her bare feet slipping in the wet sand. The ocean was closing in. The world was closing in on her. Her breath came in jagged gasps, but the wave, too quick, slammed into her, yanking her under. Her body twisted through the water, eyes stinging, lungs burning, desperate for air, clawing at the debris swirling around her, plastic, broken wood, seaweed, dead fish. But there was no solid ground to cling to. The current pulled her deeper, its grip tightening like cold fingers around her throat. She gasped for air, choking on the water, the world a dark, crushing void. She couldn't see. Every nerve in her body screamed for release, but the ocean kept pulling, tumbling her in every direction, turning her body like a puppet with broken strings. She was drowning. No. She was going to die. Something in her snapped. Her feet hit something solid. Hard. Stone? She couldn't tell. All she knew was that she had to rise. She shoved upward, throwing her weight toward the surface with every ounce of strength she had left. Her body screamed, but she pushed harder until her head broke through to air. For one split second, she inhaled. But the water dragged her down again, relentless, hungry for her life. She fought the instinct to panic. She couldn't let it win. Not today. Just breathe. Just breathe, Alice. Instinctively, she let herself float, stilling her body, letting the sea carry her, accepting the weight of the water around her. She couldn't fight it anymore, but maybe she didn't have to. Her feet found solid ground again. She shoved upward, defiant, gasping as she broke through. Sunlight blinded her. Alice jerked awake, the sharp taste of salt lingering on her tongue. Her body tangled in the sheets. The echo of the waves still thundered in her ears. The sunlight slanted through the bedroom window, blinding her. Her pulse thrummed in her neck as if the sea still had its grip on her. "You're okay. You're okay. It was a dream. Just a nightmare." What if it wasn't just a nightmare? Swinging her legs over the edge of the bed, Alice's feet hit the cold floor. Had Swiss psychiatrist and dream analysis pioneer Carl Jung ever felt this unsettled after one of his dreams? Had his own night visions ever made him question his grasp on reality? Her eyes flickered to the bedside table and her red book, the dream journal she'd named after Jung's own. Ever since she was young, she'd written down her dreams, but this one felt radically different from the rest. It was too real, though it clearly wasn't literal. She lived more than an hour from the nearest beach and had never been to it. Was the dream a symbolic glimpse into her own future? A warning? Or something darker? Deeper? It was just a dream. Maybe it was just all the energy she'd poured into teaching Jungian dream analysis spilling out cathartically in a nightmare. The feeling of drowning clung to her. She grabbed her journal and scribbled out every detail of the dream. The ocean, the wave, the suffocating terror. Jung had called the act of recording dreams an act of self-analysis. So why did this one feel more like a clear and present danger than an analysis? Was it the forbidden mystery Jung had hinted at in his red book? That thin line between genius and insanity where revelation could be found? Was her obsession with dreams driving her mad? It was her calling, her passion. Perhaps as director of the new program in Jungian Studies at the University of Central Florida, she could teach her students what she had dreamt, and encourage them to analyze it. Maybe it would be cathartic for them and for her. What if her students were the key to unlocking the deeper meanings of her own dreams? She could see herself standing before the class, scrawling on the blackboard, her voice filled with energy as she taught them about using their dreams to peer into possible futures, even to shape reality. Inception. She would reference that for sure. The perfect movie fix to illustrate how the subconscious could manipulate perception and even reality. What better way to introduce her students to the power of their own dreaming minds? Alice pushed herself out of bed as the sinking feeling of the dream still clung tight. Blinking rapidly in front of her bedroom mirror, she forced herself to take deep breaths. Her long dark hair framing the mismatched eyes staring back at her, one blue, one brown. She had always hated this difference, always hidden it behind a pair of blue lenses. A perfect illusion of normalcy. Her blue lenses, they always worked, ever since she was 14, when her mother had taken her to the ophthalmologist to prevent the cruel teasing at school. Alice slipped them on, as though the simple act could shield her from her nightmare. The rhythm of her repeated blinking to help the lenses settle helped bring a semblance of calm. Something was coming, though. She could feel it. Something was drawing her, pulling her into the unknown. Could she rise above and survive it? Alice dressed the part for her day ahead and stepped out into the bright light of the day. Was the drowning nightmare a message? A warning? And if so, a warning about what? Part 1. Nightfall. The persona is a complicated system of relations between the individual consciousness and society, fittingly enough a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other, to conceal the true nature of the individual. Carl Jung. Alice's modest apartment was just a 15-minute drive from the sprawling campus in East Orlando, a vast 1,400 acres of land. Much of the land remained untouched, with wooded areas permeated by numerous jogging and hiking trails. She found a vacant spot in the faculty parking area, slung her bag over her shoulder, and headed towards the stunning 3-story building that housed the psychology and philosophy departments. They shared the massive building, 74,250 square feet, with the Learning Institute for Elders, LIFE, which served seniors in the community. By the time she graduated from grad school 10 years ago, she'd been offered positions at the University of Miami, the University of Florida in Gainesville, and here at UCF. The only place she could imagine herself living and working was Orlando, the home to Disney's Land of Dreams. So here she had been since her first year in 2022, when COVID was waning. Inside the lobby, she made her way through the throngs of students changing classes. One of her colleagues, Amira Mensah, a philosophy and communication professor, fell into step beside her as she made her way to her lecture hall. The two had instantly connected when they joined the university teaching faculty on the same day, and in the years that followed, they grew ever closer, bonding over their love for inspiring their students and their shared passion for coffee shops, antique bookstores, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. "Hey Alice," Amira called out. "You're not going to believe this." Amira was a tall woman, about 5'10" to Alice's 5'4", so Alice often found herself craning her neck to meet her gaze. Today the sunlight streamed through the faculty's great glass windows and danced on the brightly coloured beads woven into Amira's thick-braided raven hair. Like Alice, she was in her late 30s, but her skin was tawny, not pale like Alice's, and her celadon eyes shone so vividly that sometimes Alice could almost glimpse her own reflection in them. "Odd campus gossip," Alice replied. Amira's smile faltered. "It was stranger than that." Leaning in, "You were in my dream last night, but not like you think." "What kind of dream are we talking about? Should I be flattered or worried?" Alice tried a teasing British accent. Was I the beacon of light guiding you through darkness, a saviour when all hope had crumbled? Amira looked like the dream was still haunting her. It started in my house, but not like any house I know. I found this room, hidden, buried behind a false wall. I didn't even know it was there. When I stepped inside, it was empty at first, just cold walls and silence. But then, you appeared. She paused. It was you, but not all of you. Just your face floating in the ether, like a creepy clown's face balloon. It felt wrong. Your hair was the same, but shorter, just at your ears, and it looked like you, every detail, every contour. But your eyes... Amira had never seen Alice without her blue contacts. Amira shuddered. One was dark, deep, like a void. The other was blue, bright, almost alive. There was something about them, something wild, like they weren't even your eyes anymore, and they were watching, always watching me, so intensely. It was chilling. An unfamiliar or secret or unused room is super exciting news, Alice blurted. She could never resist slipping into Jungian dream analysis mode. Houses in dreams are typically a symbol of your sense of self. Since her dream work research had become more widely acclaimed, Alice had lost count of the number of times her colleagues and students shared their dream stories with her. She found it very moving. They didn't realize it, but they were bearing something very intimate, something hidden. Alice treated every interaction as sacred, and she always offered a positive spin, something that would help them. You might just be on the verge of something big, Amira. Personal transformation is on the horizon, or needs to be. Hidden creative depths, unexplored potential. How exciting! But the room was empty until I showed up and took over. What was I doing? Alice's voice dropped. Was I drowning? I don't know, Amira pondered. You just appeared out of nowhere, and then the scene switched, and you were falling from the top of a cliff or something. You were disappearing into the darkness below. I stood at the edge, frozen, unsure. Should I jump too, follow you down, or just watch as you vanished? I couldn't move. I just watched you fall, helpless, as the distance between us grew. Did I say anything as I fell? Nothing. Interesting. Falling is the most common dream that people report, around the globe, Alice offered. If I were your dream therapist, which thank goodness I'm not, because the best person to interpret their dreams is always the dreamer herself, as dream symbols have personal as well as universal meanings, but if I were helping, I'd say the theme here is feeling unsupported, or maybe even out of control. She didn't notice Amira wince. The big question, though, is this dream about you or about me? I'm still working on how to interpret the meaning of other people moonlighting in our dreams. Pray tell. Well, Jung believed that if the person in the dream is a family member or partner, it reflects your relationship with them. But if it's not an intimate relationship, they symbolize something about you, an aspect of your mindset or personality that you need to understand or integrate. Which means that when someone cameos in your dream, it's like every other symbol in your dream, all about you. Think of a dream as stepping into a hall of mirrors, revealing your unconscious mindset or beliefs. Dreams don't happen to you. They're created for you, by you, and they're all about you. That is their real magic. So, lecture over. Which is it? When you think of me, what is the first word that comes to mind? Don't overthink it. Just look at me and go with what comes to mind. Perhaps this dream is about both of us heading for a fall. Aren't you always saying how much dreams love to pun? As for what springs to mind when I think of you, do you want brutal honesty, or should I go with what you might want to hear? Honesty, of course, Alice declared. Dreams don't lie, and neither should friends. What's the word? I promise I won't take offence. Amira hesitated. Incomplete. The word caught Alice off guard. She loved it, though. Dreams, like real friends, never hid the truth or offered up the predictable. No room for growth in what you already knew. Reflection, that's what dreams want us to do, she told Amira as they split off toward their respective classrooms. Yours is already casting a spell on me. Let me know if you remember anything else about it, okay? She was like a dream vampire, never satisfied. Of the 22 students in Alice's class, an ideal, not overwhelming number, only one had arrived so far, Neil King. A slender, brilliant kid with aspirations to be an artist, was sitting quietly at the back. "Hey, Neil." "Professor Sinclair." Neil shot to his feet, scooping up the project he'd been hunched over. "Got something I think you'll want to see." He could barely contain his excitement as he lay a charcoal sketch on Alice's desk. It was a version of Alice, with shorter, multicoloured hair, a rounded chin and eyes that mirrored her own blue lenses. "This was you in my dream last night, Professor Sinclair. Only one eye was blue and the other was brown, but I was out of brown chalk, so—" "Holy shit!" Alice blinked, slowly. "What was I doing?" "We were discussing Jung, specifically his first meeting with Freud, the whole telekinetic or mind-reading thing that happened when Jung asked Freud what he thought about the paranormal. I think we were talking about the movie version, but then for no reason you started throwing books at me, and it freaked me out so much that I woke up." The Dangerous Method was one of Alice's films to reference to her students. Viggo Mortensen as Freud and Michael Fassbender as Jung. Fascinating movie and dream referral to it, Neil. Shame about the book throwing, but perhaps that's just me telling you that my academic expectations of you are high. Neil beamed. Other students began trickling in, chatting and settling into their seats. Alice eyed the sketch. "Mind if I keep a copy of this?" "Sure, but there's more," Neil said. "A couple of people in my comparative psyche class have also dreamed about you, except for them it was more of a nightmare than a dream. Noah dreamt you buried him alive. Maybe he's struggling with his dissertation, feeling stuck. Eve told me you shot her with a pistol. Maybe she's feeling like forces outside her control are out to get her. Or she's just scared you might mark her down." Spoken like a budding Jungian dream analyst. But nightmares are still dreams, just extreme ones. Usually the dreaming mind tries sending gentle messages first in dreams, but when we ignore them, things typically escalate into shock tactics. Nightmares can be tough to forget, which is exactly what your unconscious mind is always for, your undivided attention. When we dive into our shadow work seminars, you'll learn more about how nightmares expose what's repressed inside us, screaming for recognition, but which we refuse to face and understand in our waking time. So, please, she glanced around at the small crowd gathering for class, don't hate or be scared of your nightmares. Understand and communicate with them and have compassion for them. Recognize them for what they are, transformative gifts to help you become wiser. They hold the key to your self-awareness and your personal growth. Neil looked surprised. They're a warning light flashing at you from the inside out, to show you that something about your current mindset isn't serving your best interests, she urged. But that doesn't mean it's game over. You can change your perspective in a flash, steer a new course for yourself, if you want to stop waking up to a terrifying dream. Salvador Dali had described his art as photographs of his dreams. As Alice spoke, she could practically see the gears turning and imprinting themselves in Neil's head. I'm not sure if I should be flattered or freaked out by all these dreams starring me. It's next-level stuff even for me. Did any of your friends mention the different coloured eyes as well? They definitely did. So, 4 people had dreamed about her last night, and Neil King's charcoal sketch bore an uncanny resemblance to her. But none of them had ever seen her without her contacts. What was any of it supposed to mean? Class that day was a great session, a good vibe crackling. After, at the door, Neil handed her his sketch. I did it on my iPhone too, in colour, if you'd like me to send you that. Wow, Alice said, as the image appeared on her phone. It was her. Eerily so. Even the eyes. Strange, huh? Neil replied. What do you think it means, Professor Sinclair? No idea. For now, I'm chalking it up to a bizarre coincidence. In Dreamland, would we expect anything less than the unexpected? According to Jung, coincidences were signposts, meaningful connections or synchronicities. They never happened without reason. Could it be something tapping into an archetype? Neil questioned. Something from the collective unconscious? People, things, feelings, the life stages we all share, just like you talked about today. Guess we'll have to wait and see. But thank you for the sketch. It's not every day you become the star in someone else's dream. The employee dining room was always bathed in sunlight, owing to the row of tall windows. As usual, Alice and Amira had snagged one of the tables beside the copious amounts of glass so that they could watch the courtyard below. A fountain bubbled at its centre, surrounded by a plethora of greenery and flowers that drew every bird in the neighbourhood. Today, someone had hung a couple of hummingbird feeders from the branches, and now a pair of these little beauties fluttered at the feeders, their tiny wings flapping ferociously in a near-invisible blur. Alice stared at the birds, sensing some message meant for her. Certain esoteric traditions and dream symbology treated birds as conduits between worlds, messengers, but only for the person who saw them. Alice had never lost anyone she cared deeply about, so this wasn't a message igniting a fond memory of a departed loved one. Maybe it was an omen, a promise she'd soon make sense of this bizarre dream phenomenon. The vibrant flowers before her were symbols of comfort and beauty, even hope. All Alice had to do was keep calm, rise above, and wait to see the bigger picture. Amira looked to the hummingbirds fluttering at a feeder. Wow, positive sign, those little guys. She slid into the chair across from Alice, setting her briefcase down and giving Alice a once-over. You look like you've discovered a major secret. Let's get some food first, Alice pleaded. I'm starving. Alice helped herself to a tuna casserole with mushrooms and cheese, a slice of warm buttered French bread, and a glass of honey-flavoured iced tea. The university cafeteria food was surprisingly good. Once they sat down again and settled in, Alice brought out her phone and showed Amira Neil's digital sketch. She passed it to Amira, who studied it so intensely that Alice had to consciously blink to keep her nerves in check. Wow, that really does look like you, except for the different coloured eyes. Making sure no one was watching, Alice took out her contact case and removed her contacts. When she looked up, Amira drew in a sharp breath. Christ, it really is you. Quickly, Alice popped the lenses back in. Keep that to yourself, okay? My odd eyes have freaked people out my whole life. I'm only showing you because something strange is happening, and I need to find out what the hell is going on. For several unravelling moments, neither of them spoke. This has Jung written all over it, Amira finally broke the silence. And not just because he's your absolute speciality. It reminds me of that story about his patient and the scarab. Total synchronicity, like life itself is pulling the strings. In the fabled story, Jung was treating a woman who had recently dreamt of a golden scarab, an archetypal or universal symbol of death and transformation. At the exact moment she was telling him, a beetle tapped on Jung's window. He caught it and presented it to her. The incident had shattered her skepticism and opened her mind to therapy. In a way, it had launched Jung's deep dive into synchronicity, even precognition. Could the bizarre incident of people dreaming about her be the puzzle piece she'd been missing for her next big project? Alice had an independent publisher hounding her for a book proposal ever since her TED Talk on synchronicity, but she hadn't been sure of the direction she should take. Now her entire body hummed with the spark of possibility. You may be right, she told Amira, but I need to dig deeper. You and Neil and the other students all know me. I'd be rattled if someone I've never met claims to have dreamed about me. 4 in one night is out there enough for me. It must mean something, don't you think? Alice's appetite left her. It felt as if the universe had just dropped a cryptic treasure map right into her lap. And the next step was all up to her. And what frightened her the most was not so much that she didn't have a clue about the how or why, but what she was dealing with. By the time Alice left campus at around 4:30 that afternoon, no one else had approached her to tell her they had dreamt of her. Maybe it really was just a random fluke, one of those oddball blips in the scheme of things. She felt relief and a hint of disappointment in her reaction. Jung would have seen that blip as a cosmic sign, a synchronicity, and run with it. Why couldn't she? That night, Alice lay in bed for what seemed like forever, wondering if tonight's dreams would bring more revelations. In the early hours of the morning, she woke with a start. But the sole remnant of her dreams was a tired cliché, her teeth falling out as she stood in her bathroom, trying to put her blue lenses in. Not again. She scanned herself for hidden dream details. The dream was so familiar. It had reoccurred since her early teens, so she wasn't wasting precious sleep time jotting it down in her journal. Instead, she sank back into a dreamless sleep until her alarm nudged her awake. She snatched up her mobile to search for a sign someone else had dreamt of her, but it was dead. Fantastic. She must have forgotten to charge it overnight. She took a few steadying breaths, letting the rising anxiety ebb. She threw on clothes, downed a quick breakfast and headed out. 10 minutes into her commute along the I-4, her phone, now plugged into the car charger, erupted in a cacophony of beeps, rings and pings. Alarmed, Alice pulled off at the next exit, eyes peeled for a promise of gas, food and some semblance of civilization. She parked at a pump, flexing her tense fingers before working up the nerve to check her phone. Every dormant app Alice had signed up for but rarely found the inclination to post on had exploded, a digital avalanche crashing in from every angle, notifications popping up rapidly like hazard lights demanding her attention. I saw a sketch of you on social media and it led me to you, your university email. Who the hell are you? Don't have a clue who you are, but why did I dream about you? Professor Sinclair, you're the scary woman of my dreams. Why? You're not even my type. News Radio Orlando here. Are you available for an interview? WTF. Someone had posted a sketch identical to the one Neil had drawn, asking, "Have you dreamed of this strange woman?" And the replies kept on coming. Students, colleagues, requests for interviews from Orlando's finest and not-so-finest media outlets, podcasts, magazines, websites. Dozens of strangers swore they'd dreamed of her too, comment after comment flooding in. Some even claimed she was pregnant in their visions. That part almost made a twisted sense. Just a month ago, the hashtag #DreamBabies had blown up, prompting a new fringe news channel to contact Alice for an expert take on what it meant to dream of pregnancy. She'd explained that it didn't automatically mean a real baby, unless the dreamer wanted one and was thinking about that potential in their waking life. More likely, it symbolized nurturing something new inside you, a creative project, or your inner child simply craving attention and nurturing. She must have repeated the same line 1,000 times. Trust your intuition. Dreams are rarely literal. Focus on the symbolism. Go through all the metaphors for pregnancy. Look for that light bulb moment, the meaning that clicks for you and creates a positive inner shift. That's the signal you have found the correct meaning of the dream for you. Alice had spent years wishing dreams would catch the public's fascination and take the spotlight. Now here it was, unleashed in the most personal way possible. How is my face in so many people's subconscious? And what does it mean? Theresa, thank you so much for sharing this part of your book and for joining us on the show today.
Our first question may seem a bit obvious, but how and why did you pivot into fiction after such a long and successful career writing nonfiction, and what challenges did you encounter, if any?
Oh, have you got hours? This is a long story. Nightborn. I have been banging my Nightborn drum for over 6 years now.
Wow.
But I blame my daughter, fair and square, because she's a bookworm and she's forever reading Gothic romances and all these kind of things. She's never without a book, but she doesn't read nonfiction. And I find that there are a lot of people like that who would not normally pick up a nonfiction book. And I'm on a mission, as you know, Steve knows from my last interview, to mainstream dream work and the power of dream decoding and working with your dreams to transform your life. So I thought, well, maybe I could write a novel that you could read on two levels. On one level, it's a thriller. You know, I'm very inspired by Dan Brown. I do enjoy his novels. And the kind of edge of your seat thriller where every page it's like, what's going to happen next? You know, honestly, when you read Nightborn, you won't, you're in for a ride. I'm telling you, there's no pause. There's no break. It's just relentless, you know, scene after scene with revelations and revelations, a bit mirroring how a dream is. But on another level, when you read it, you don't actually realize you're getting a subliminal dream decoding course, because all the characters are dream psychologists and people deep into Jungian integration, projection, shadow work. And what you're getting along the way, through the characters' voices and their stories, is how to recall your dreams, understand them better, and use them to transform your life, to energize your life in spectacular ways. So you can read it on two levels, because I want people who don't normally read nonfiction to read this. And I hope, in fact, the early feedback I'm getting is very encouraging. People who've read it or even seen the cover are waking up with very vivid dream recall. So the book is having that subliminal impact already, and I'm so excited. And I must talk about the cover as well, which is, you know, people are having a very visceral reaction to it. They either love it or hate it, but either way, it's triggering something in them, and I love that. So I'd love you to let me know what you think of the cover, because the main character, Professor Sinclair, she has different colored eyes. So a lot of the book is actually also about celebrating being different, because she hides that difference behind a pair of blue lenses, and the eyes being the windows of the soul. You can see where I'm going there. But the challenges along the way, oh my goodness. Yes, I have been very blessed over the years to write countless books in this area. I'm most well known for dream decoding, particularly in recent years because of ITV This Morning, who have called me on for over 30 national dream call-ins, where people call in with their dreams and I decode them live on air. I also do a lot of BBC local radio dream decoding. When the host has a dream, they call me in. Not Ghostbusters, it's Dream Busters, call Freezer in. I love that. And I've been to Gaia TV as well. They've flown me over several times now to do an episode on nightmares and dream work. So I'm best known for dream decoding, but actually people who follow me will know that there's not a subject really in the mind, body and soul that I haven't kind of written a book about, you know, astrology, rituals, afterlife, angels, manifesting, intuition, precognition, the afterlife, near-death experiences, ghosts and hauntings. I believe last year I came on your wonderful podcast for one of my titles, Haunted World.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed to have written many books, and this year I've had several books out. Next year I'm blessed again to have 3 titles out, and the year after that another 3. I'm so grateful, but I wanted to write a novel because I realize I'm reaching people, maybe the same people all the time, and I believe that we need to get out of our comfort zone. So when I announced to HarperCollins and Hachette and my publishers that I wanted to do this, they were just, it was almost like they held up the crucifix. No, you can't do this. And that knocked my confidence because I had sent them samples, and it was almost like they were saying, you can't do this. This is dreadful. So I had to sort of lick my wounds a bit, but I couldn't let it go. So I went on a few writing courses. I started to get, you know, people to help me write it. I worked a little bit with a ghostwriter as well. And then I represented it. But again, for them, it said, no, Theresa, you're known as the British grandmother of psychic. You're not someone who writes a very dark, very weird, quite disturbing novel. Then I said, hey, look at Agatha Christie. You know, she was quite, you know, but no, they wouldn't help me. And and that was difficult. And it was like, should I give up on this? It's just not going anywhere. But I just couldn't. I'm so passionate about it. And I want to be able to tick it off my bucket list. I've written a novel. I did learn along the way that a novel is hard. The art of fiction writing, it's something you need to really be humble about. It's not easy. You need to take criticism from people at every corner. So you do need to be quite tough.
Yeah.
But I took great heart by reading all the stories of some real greats, throughout literature, that their early work was completely rejected and dismissed and put to the bottom of the pile. There are so many really world famous novels that were initially hounded by the critics, discarded, and not given a chance by their publishers. And they had to publish it themselves or find another way. So I thought, well, I don't know whether this is going to set the world alight. It doesn't matter. I felt called to write it. I actually do think creativity comes from the future. I have this idea, because I've done a lot of work in precognition, that when you're called to be creative, it's actually the future calling. Because if you see actually a lot of films, movies, art, and poetry, they kind of like almost foreshadow future events. And I hope Nightborn does foreshadow it, won't give away the plot, because it's about a world where people are recognizing that their dreams have something to say to them.
Yeah.
And that in the dream state, you connect to a part of yourself that's invisible and unseen and sees the bigger picture of your soul's journey in a way you can't do when you're conscious. So, but eventually at the end of the day, long story short, sorry, I could talk forever about this.
Okay.
Small independent publisher I'm very grateful for, just decided to take a leap of faith in it. Loved it and said, let's just try this. It is a small independent publisher, which means it won't get widespread distribution to the bookshops. It was very frustrating, actually, last week. Waterstones, you'll know that's deep here in the UK. I'm sure you do, Melissa, the big book chain. They actually called me in for a Haunted World author talk and book signing. And I was saying to them, I have a novel out. And they said, oh, no, it's a small independent publisher. We can't do that. It's all about the big giants. And, that's how it is. And it's very sad that, I've had the privilege of people sending me their original novels and stuff and trying to get published. And I can't often see the difference between their novels and really seasoned authors. It's just that there are the chosen few, aren't there?
Yeah.
That there's not more open-mindedness to being a bit different and taking a risk in someone new, but always going with the same tried and tested formula. I mean, there's some, you could argue that with me in nonfiction, I kind of dominate that field. So I'm sure there are a lot of nonfiction authors think, oh, wish Theresa Cheung would just retire. I could write that book about crystals or whatever. And I'm so sorry about that. But unfortunately, it's in my blood. I was kind of born in a family of spiritualists and psychics and mediums. I just wouldn't know what to do if I wasn't writing books. I'd probably just write for myself, really. But anyway, long story short, thank you, Collective Ink, for taking a leap of faith in me. And if you do support this book, you'll be supporting all independent publishers, because I'm no different.
Hugely important.
Yeah.
And I'm no different. You've got to realize I'm a debut voice in fiction. So as far as the fiction world is concerned, it doesn't matter who Theresa Cheung is on the non-fiction side. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares about that. It's about being a first-time debut novelist, and you make yourself very vulnerable when you're like that, because you kind of put your soul on the line.
Yeah.
And I'm no different, really. I haven't had any help and support with this book. It's been something that I've just felt I wanted to write. And if only maybe, just maybe, my daughter will read one of my books.
So, Theresa, how did you come up with the unique premise of the story, and is it based on something factual that you've actually stumbled upon in your field of work? Because the field of work of dreams for you is huge. So is this something that you grabbed from a real experience, maybe?
Yes, it is. And of course, many of my books are a collection of true stories from readers and experiences, paranormal experiences, dreams coming true, how dreams have impacted their life, afterlife signs. And in my book about precognition and everything, and one of my many encyclopedias, I included an entry for thisman.org, which I believe was 2008. Now, what happened there was a marketing company just did a generic sketch of a man that looked like a man, put it on their website, and I kind of said, have you dreamt of this man? So I believe somebody had a dream about a stranger and they'd done a kind of generic image. And what happened in the weeks that followed, thousands of people across the globe started to say, I have dreamt of this person.
Wow.
It went viral, but it actually turned out to be a marketing hoax, right? But what it showed is the power of suggestion. Had people dreamt of this sketchy figure, or had they seen it and then gone away and dreamt about it, power of suggestion, the subliminal flash theme there. But it also showed that, it got me thinking, well, what actually, if I woke up tomorrow morning and I was stopped by a stranger in the street who didn't know me, hadn't seen me on telly or anything, just said, I dreamt you were in my dream. I recognize you. And then that was happening. Well, how would that make you feel?
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's make the character someone who teaches dream analysis, Jungian dream analysis. She's a professor in it. Let's make it happen to her so she can live a dream, as it were. And what's she going to do with it? I just thought there was a film, I think a Nicolas Cage one explored this, but they had the character of Nicolas Cage because it's very filmic, who woke up one morning and people were dreaming about him. But the film didn't do very well because I think it didn't do very well because they had this opening powerful scene of him appearing in people's dreams, but then it didn't follow through.
Yeah.
And I thought that's the really interesting hook here. And maybe that's why that film didn't grip imagination, because I think that's so interesting. Because just imagine if you had some scheme or code, you could hack people's dreams at night. Just imagine, social media has such control over our waking minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there's someone or something that wants to go deeper and get our souls and implant ideas. Inception, of course, explored this. That's lucid dreaming. It's not about lucid dreaming and about what would happen if you saw someone that in those dreams and everybody else was dreaming about that person, this shared dream experience. What would that say? What would happen? I just wanted to explore that, and I have.
I love that. A few technical questions, because I think our listeners who are also writers will be interested in this. So you mentioned a 6-year window, but how long would you say the process took from concept to completion? And how do you work? What was your method? Did you plot out your storyline, or did you just start writing? How did you build your character? What did you pull from in your life to kind of build this?
The idea, as I said, was 6 years ago, that I just started plotting out the ideas in various scenarios. But it didn't actually really take shape until about 2 years ago, when I just thought, I've got to do this. And I just started writing. And actually, I was inspired by someone who was an author, Kim Nash. She's a friend of mine. And she said, and I said, well, I'm no good at fiction. And she said, well, how do you know? And I said, well, because I've tried with this idea and nobody's interested. And she said, well, what I want you to do, Theresa, it's great advice. I want you to go home tonight and write the first chapter as badly as you can. Write the worst first chapter to a book, Jay, make it terrible. And not only did that liberate me greatly, but it's actually quite hard to write something that's really bad. And then you realize, actually, that's a really good thing. And it doesn't matter, because when you spit it out, you can always, the beauty of fiction, you can always go back. But what you need to do is knock out that first draft, because that's not going to be what the end product is. Just knock out something really awful. But you need that first 60 or 70,000 words. And that sounds a lot, but it's not. Once you go with the flow, you actually find most first-time fiction writers, their first book actually is about 200,000 words, and their challenge then is to cut it. And then what will happen? I did that. I just knocked out really what I thought was terrible first draft. And then I put it away for a week, and I went back and read it, and I thought, hey, isn't bad. It's got something.
Yeah.
And then I had the wonderful thing of sculpting it, going back, and then sending it off to people I trusted who were writers to give me feedback. Approaching a ghostwriter, I was able to do that to help me say, like the dramatic, I had the drowning scene sort of like quarter of the way through the book. No, you start with that. The importance of you've got to draw them in with something so compelling, or something that people have very likely experienced, because drowning dreams or going underwater in a dream is one of the most common dreams. So to have that scenario, as is teeth falling out, these kind of things, to grab them with something relatable and compelling.
Yeah.
So that you've got them right from the start. So that's how I did it. And it was just knocking it into shape over time. And the hard thing is actually to let it go. You always want to fiddle with it, but you've got to sometimes think, stop.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is great. Because if you're reading out what people are sending you, they are open to getting that feedback. Maybe they'll either have a social media presence or an email. And if you do get feedback that's not so good, please don't worry, because I could send you stacks. I mean, if these people have written something and somebody says, oh, I don't like it, it doesn't matter. It's feedback.
Yeah.
I always actually, when I want to buy a new book, I read the 1 stars, because it's really important that actually a book divides opinion. I think a book that universally comes out and everybody loves, I don't think that exists. There's always going to be someone, who's going to pull it down. I'm a big Dan Brown fan, and Dan Brown is the most successful writer, I think, of our time, isn't he? With the Da Vinci Code. He has so many critics. People say he can't write.
Oh, 100%.
But I'm telling you, I went through a period when I actually fell out of love with fiction. And it was the Da Vinci Code was the first book for many, many years that I literally, that book, lovely experience when you just can't go to sleep.
Yes.
Because you want to read the next chapter.
Yes.
Then I was horrified to read the snobbish dismissal and criticism of his breathtaking speed that he wrote. But there's a story actually behind Dan Brown, his latest book, The Secrets of Secrets. He talks about noetic wisdom. And I don't know if I mentioned that in my previous interview with you. I work with the Institute of Noetic Sciences. I've co-authored with the scientists who are mentioned in that book. So I've got my Dan Brown link.
That's beautiful.
Because he talks about an experiment there of sensing the future ahead of time. The book is a lot about precognition. And my co-author on the Premonition Code is Dr. Julian Mossbridge, who he credits in the book.
Yeah.
And he thanks. And he actually went over to the Institute of Noetic Sciences, who I blog for. I do blogs about the power of the dreaming mind. And he spent time there to write The Secret of Secrets.
So, Theresa, which books and authors have inspired you? Which ones have influenced you, both in childhood, and this is something that Melissa always, you're fascinated with childhood authors as well when you're younger. Which ones, as a child and an adult, which are the authors that have stuck with you and the books that have stuck with you?
I think as a young child, I loved the Andrew Lang fairy story collections around. That's they're kind of like, he went the blue fairy book, the pink fairy book. I remember I wanted everyone, and I would go to libraries. I just ate those up. These were like, stories, from all over the world of, fairy stories. But in terms of more fiction-y, I guess C.S. Lewis. I was very enchanted with the Narnia books, read them over and over again. Very traditional they are, and I know they've had their criticism. But I think the world he creates is just, I would just get lost in it. And I wish they'd make movies of the other ones, actually, that they kind of gave up the ghost, didn't they, at the Dawn Treader?
Yeah.
And I don't know why. And then, although this is jumping forward in time, Dan Brown and J.K. Rowling, very obvious choices. I just take my hat off to both of them.
Yeah.
And both have very spiritual leanings. I like in J.K. Rowling, it's all about shadow work. I mean, it's a novel of shadow work. It's Harry encountering, I hope there's a plot, most people know the story, don't they? Plot spoiler here, but Voldemort's his shadow, isn't it? And he's got to learn to integrate it. And Tolkien, my podcast is lovingly called White Shores. I read all of the Lord of the Rings, along with Jane Austen. I'm a big Jane Austen fan. I eat up Jane Austen and Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. Another one, I think The Signal Man is one of the greatest paranormal stories ever told, along with The Christmas Carol, which is dream work, supernatural, all rolled into one. So those really are my influences, and nothing really touches them. I'm going through a Frida McFadden phase at the moment.
We're pivoting a little bit, but what do you dream about? You may have answered this in your interview with the other podcast, but...
Oh, I have a very vivid dream life. I feel blessed. I've always been a big, big dreamer, and I feel blessed with that. In fact, if my dream recall is poor, I feel a bit sad. But I take it as a lesson that maybe I'm a bit stressed and a bit busy. But yeah, I've had very many powerful dreams, one of which, and that was actually my breakout book, An Angel Called My Name. I shared the story of a dream of my departed mother. It really brought me peace and healing beyond words. But the dream also, I believe, that following day may well have saved my life, because in the dream, my mother was saying to me quite clearly, I was in a wood with her. I can just still picture it. That's the thing is with dreams you've had, you can still, like they really happened. And in that dream, I wanted to go in a certain direction. And she was saying, Theresa, just take the right path. And when I woke up in the morning, it was very comforting as well, because it reminded me death ends a life, not relationships. She was alive somewhere. But she'd always said to me when I was growing up, when I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, she'd always say, "You just take the right path. Follow." I mean, I thought it meant follow your heart, but actually, I was at a junction later that day, intending to turn left to get to my first ever radio interview about the paranormal. Actually, because I'd been collecting angel stories back then. I was in my late 20s. And I had to turn left to get to the radio studio. But for some reason, that dream it was almost like it appeared again in my head. I have no idea to this day. And I heard her voice as inside myself, but also outside myself. It was very surreal, take the right path. And I don't know, something just made me obey it. And it was daft, because the right path actually took me a really long route round, and I got to the radio station too late. I'd missed my slot. This was the days before mobile phones. And I wasn't actually invited onto a radio station for many years later to talk about what I was doing in my research and writing. So I was gutted. But I found out later that day that had I taken the left path, I could, and I stress could, this could just be coincidence, but what's coincidence?
Yeah.
I could have been in a fatal pileup. There was a pileup of cars, and 3 people lost their lives because a stray dog had gone in the road, and that was on the local news. And I knew it was because it was the junction I was at. It was the car I'd been trailing, the van. But I have second guessed that all the time, thinking, oh, it was random. It was, you know how we all do.
Yes.
Also feeling very guilty. Well, why was I given that warning? All these things have gone through my head. So I have had dreams like that, but I've also had dreams which foreshadow future events. People will pop into my dreams that I have no connection. I remember dreaming, not famously for me, it was not for anyone else, but I remember dreaming one night, this was 2016, 2017, Russell Brand, the infamous Russell Brand, he's going through a hard time right now. So it popped into my dreams. And he wasn't an actor at the time that was particularly on my radar.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan particularly of his work or his movies. I remember watching Big Brother. Why am I dreaming about he was in some kind of hall? I dismissed it. And literally a week later, I was called on to be one of the early guests of his Under the Skin podcast. And spent 2 hours in his company in his studio, having what would transform into a car crash interview that went out. I remember being like a rabbit caught in the headlights, because I thought the interview was audio only. It was full visual. So I hadn't prepared for that. It was also in the studio with him in person. And he was in that very kind of aggressive, almost skeptical mode with what I write about, asking about the science and all that, because I just published the Premonition Code with Dr. Julian Mossbridge. And I actually think it was an error on his production team that they thought they were getting Dr. Julian Mossbridge.
Oops.
I still to this day don't know, because he clearly had no idea who I was. But it was a car crash of an interview, because when he was talking about the science, I ended up quoting Patrick Swayze from Ghost, "The love inside Molly, you take it with you." Can you imagine you're doing this to It wasn't my finest hour, which made him guffaw with laughter. So if you can make someone like that. And then the interview just took on a very humorous tone, where he was jibing me because people write to me. And, he was saying, who are these people that write? It was a car crash interview. I thought they would never run it. It was a disaster. And I remember looking on the board, he had like Eckhart Tolle or something, Marianne Williamson, Theresa Cheung. And I'm thinking, is this a dream? I was doing reality check. This is bonkers. But anyway, I didn't think it would run. And then 6 months later, suddenly my phone exploded because he had run it. Wow. And that really was a turning point for me, because it was such a car crash interview. And there was such a kind of like real affection for me in my state of shell shock and horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since then, all the media stuff started coming in. And I do know, I mean, I'm very grateful to Russell and his team. They were lovely to me at the time, actually, even though the experience was hell. They were kind, and he's going through a very difficult time now. I don't know the truth of that. I can't comment. I'm not in touch with him in any way, but it was a turning point. But anyway, to go back to your point, I had kind of sensed this ahead of time. Why him? There are many podcasters at the time, spiritual. Why had my dreaming mind sensed this ahead of time? And it perfectly played into what I'd written about in that book, Premonition Code, which, by the way, has had a rebirth because dear Julia Mossbridge, who is a dear friend, we're still in touch. She guests on my podcast. She was recently on the Big Bang Theory lady, Dr. Mayim Balek's podcast.
Yeah.
And Premonition Code, a sleeper hit. It was published 2017, went to #1 on because she went on there and talked about her collaboration. And what we were trying to do was to marry science and spirituality together, the two voices. So it was beautiful, full circle.
That's great.
It was lovely. So long story, but yes, that was I believe, a precognitive dream.
So many of the writers featured on our podcast are unpublished. And several of them share stories, as we were talking about earlier, that have, sat in notebooks for years. I honestly, earlier when we were talking about it, was surprised that your past as a nonfiction writer actually almost played against you.
But the thing is, though, I kind of want both. I'm maybe a bit selfish. I still carry on. That's my bread and butter. That's how I earn my living.
Of course.
I write nonfiction, but this was me trying to mainstream dream work and the paranormal, because it is a paranormal book, in a different way. I'm not sure if I will carry on with my fiction. We'll see how Nightborn does. I would love to. I've got an idea for another novel. It's annoying when they're born in you because they want to be taking their steps in the world and they won't go away. I've got this idea now.
Yeah.
To do with AI and I just bug. The thing is, anyone out there who's listening, just write it. And actually, if you are someone who has had a very successful first novel, publishers and agents will still reject the second one. It won't make any difference. If it doesn't grab an editor or the team don't feel that it's right or there's some competing title, actually second, third, fourth novels are just as hard. And there's actually a lot of writers I know who have published a first novel themselves. It's not done well. And they've done a second and a third. And then somehow the fourth one gets picked up. So just keep going. I think if it's meant to be, it will. And also, at the end of the day, why do we always feel we need to impress other people all the time? If you impress yourself, writing a novel is a dream. It's a wonderful workout for your brain. It's cathartic, it's healing, and it's something you can gift to your children. They can read it, or people you care about. It's about you. Write a novel to impress yourself first, because at the end of the day, that's the most important person in the world to impress. And I know that's easy for me to say, and it's something I have to work on too. It's nice to get a pat on the back, but at the end of the day, make yourself proud that you have done this.
No, I think that has actually answered the whole of the question that we were going to finish that off with, which is literally going to be, what advice would you give to those wanting to get a story out there? I think you've just answered that completely perfectly well. In closing, Theresa, how can our listeners find out more about you? I know we've mentioned this on Haunted UK podcast last year, but how can they find out more about you? Where can they find a copy of the book, Nightborn? And what else? I know you've just briefly mentioned another idea that you've got plucking away. What else have you got coming up this year and maybe next year? I know you said you've got a few titles. Any more television appearances, or is that niggling little idea of that new book gonna make its first steps? What do you think?
Oh, I've got so much coming up. But thank you, first of all, to you too, Steve and Melissa, for what you're doing and for helping people be more creative, because you're actually helping them personally and spiritually awakened by doing that.
Thank you.
For listeners, I just want to say again, the most successful book of all time, I believe, after the Bible, is Pride and Prejudice. Jane Austen, in her own lifetime, never saw that success. she would have gone to her grave not really knowing that she'd created something that was literally timeless.
Yeah.
It was a modest success, but it wasn't a huge success. There were other writers in her day who outsold her by bucket loads. We don't know them anymore. So you never know. You could write something that maybe in a time capsule is discovered centuries later and becomes epic. So just hold on to that. But sometimes actually being popular doesn't mean it's great. I think we've got to distinguish between the two. I sometimes will post on my socials, quote by the Dalai Lama gets 1 like, and then I would do a post about psychic goldfish, thousands of likes.
Yeah.
So just bear that in mind.
Yeah.
After Nightborn, next year I have The Twin Flame Journey. So that's a relationship book based on Valentine's. I also have a book about moon power coming out, which is heavily illustrated. And then next October, a book called Extreme Dreaming, which is about tapping into nightmares. And I really love that because I could go to the dark side of dreaming. And then the year after that, I have some other titles, but that's way down the line. As far as Nightborn is concerned, please support it. As I said, it's weird, it's dark, I'm scared. It's my first novel. Please love it. And I would love to write more. And I'd love you to tell me if you don't like it, because that's how I learn and grow. I would love any feedback, please. And if you can't afford it, books are expensive, please get in touch with me. And if you could in return give me an honest review, I'm happy to gift it. So just to help me, because that would really help me. If you would like that, I can send you a PDF, a hard copy, whatever your choice is. Email me at angeltalk710@aol.com. And don't laugh at my aol.com address, as many podcasters do. In fact, I love going on. I was on a big platform the other day, and they said, we just laughed about your email address. Do people still use AOL? Well, I do. It's become a matter of stubbornness now. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And to contact me, I'm very homemade social media presence. I do it all myself. I'm a one-woman band, so don't laugh again at that. It's so homemade. My children rib me all the time. They say, Mum, please. But anyway, if you want to have a laugh at my homemade, I'm at the Theresa Cheung on Instagram. I do have a much bigger presence on Facebook, but I've lost touch with Facebook over the years. I'm not quite sure how it works anymore. I don't understand. I'm also on X. Again, I'm not really understand how that works, but I have got a platform on there, and I just use it for people who want to message me. I don't tend to post that. Instagram tends to be. I get that, and people are saying go on TikTok. And actually, my daughter, she has, in the kindness of her heart, created an at Nightborn 2025 TikTok account where she is posting, and basically I think she's going for the please help my mum because I don't know how to get on TikTok. I have no idea what she's doing on there. I hope it's positive. Let me know.
Okay.
But she said she'd do it till Halloween, but then she's far too busy with her own life, and I think that's very sweet. She hasn't given me her views on Nightborn yet. I still live in hope. Just as she has not accepted my invite for her to follow me on Instagram. She says it's funny when she's opened it and she's got Theresa Cheung.Blending. So
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
and also my website is www.theresacheung.com.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for speaking with us today, Theresa. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. We truly hope you've enjoyed this special episode featuring Theresa Cheung, and we'd like to thank Theresa from the bottom of our hearts for appearing on the show. If you'd like any further information regarding this interview, or you have questions regarding Theresa and her writing, then why not drop us a line? Also, if you have an original story that would send a chill down our spines and you would like to submit it for review, then simply send it in to hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com. Until the next time, stay safe and take care.